Grimfrost Podcast. Today's guest is Johan Runer, archaeologist and researcher at Stockholm University, Sweden. Welcome to our longhouse. Great to have you here. How was your journey?
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
For once, the train was on time, so it was really nice.
That is a common theme when we have guests here. They always comment on the time, the trains being on time, as something fantastic.
Yes,
and it is kind of.
Yes,
I know. So, you are a Viking Age interested archaeologist and historian and researcher and all that stuff. But how did you get interested in the Viking Age and Vikings in the first place?
Oh, shit! It's so long time ago, so that I almost don't remember. But I mean, since I was very, very small, so it has always been a fascinating theme for me. I grew up on Ekerö, outside of Stockholm. And it's the community where Birka is situated also, and there's lots of Iron Age stuff around there with runestones and graves and things. So since I was very, very small.
Yeah. So how did that lead you into archaeology then?
Well, it was not a straight road. When I was 14, I wanted to become an historian, really.
Okay.
So, but then I practiced at the Swedish Historical Museum in Stockholm, and then I realized that all the people that worked there were archaeologists. So then I thought, I will be an archaeologist.
Okay.
And then I thought a bit more. So when I started university, I thought, no, I will be in the in the Mediterranean world. I will study like ancient Rome and stuff because it's better weather. It's better. It's a better environment.
Kind of makes sense.
Yeah, but then I realized that it's a very, very hard working environment there as well. So it ended up that I became a regular Nordic
Maybe a bit sweatier.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So have you ever regretted going into archaeology instead of becoming a historian?
No, I think that in my profession, I can combine those two things anyway.
They kind of intersect, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, just because you're an archaeologist, you're not prohibited to use written sources, so you can combine those two anyway. So, and I think that is mostly the most rewarding thing to do, to combine different sources and try to make out what makes most sense. So
yeah. So one of your specialities is the Viking Age society. So what can you tell us about it? How was the Viking Age society structured?
Well, it's a very, very large question.
Yes, please.
So it needs some simplification. But one of the biggest misconceptions, I think, about the Viking Age society, and one thing that is most often people pressure on, is that there were these great men or these kings who decided everything. Yeah, men existed and kings existed, but you have to realize that it was a society that had a really, really weak state. So, I mean, there were no standing army all the time, and you had no police. So, to put it bluntly, everybody was more or less for themselves. So there was not this power base to impose on people things that they needed to do. So it was in much a collective society where people they needed to cooperate, and decision making was often you needed to agree on stuff to make it happen. Of course, there were great men sometimes that could have some sort of power, but that was not a fixed measure, because if you need a fixed structure, you need something more than just temporary violence or temporary violent capital. You need something more stable.
So I think I read somewhere or heard somewhere that during the Viking Age, because of the weak state and the fact that there was no police force or standing army or anything. Actually, the way that, because of the collective, the resources during the Viking Age were a lot more distributed throughout the society than later on during the medieval times. Is that correct? Or?
Yes,
Yeah.
I would say so. I would say that the transition over to the medieval period, it's also about concentration of power, so to speak, and also about developing a more hierarchical society.
Yeah. So, but how do we know what the Viking Age society looked like? Like,
yeah, for one thing, it's the Viking Age, all right. So so people went abroad to get stuff. Yes, and that is a sign of this society, because in a society later on in the medieval period, then you have these taxes and stuff inside your own society. And a tax is really that you force someone in your own society to pay you something, and they don't know if they get anything in return for it. And that measure in itself was it was not possible in most cases in the Viking society, because people were on such sort of equal terms. So if you tried to make that a feature of the society, you would be put away.
Yeah.
So the only way that you could gain a sort of a surplus, if you wanted to, then you had to get it somewhere else outside of your own society. And that is one of the bases, the most fundamental base for this plunder economy.
So that's how we know that the Viking society was structured in this way, because
that is one thing, but you have a lot of stuff that points to this. You also have this thing, the odalrätt, the odal rights to the land, and it's the way how you own the things.
And we're going to touch it on that a little bit later.
Yes.
But what are the challenges in like reconstructing the way the Viking Age society looked like?
I think the most challenging thing is really that it was so different. It's so different from our society. So sometimes I have found that people have hard, for instance, to leave our concepts about how to own something. When do you own it? What does it mean to own something? So you have to have to really see that it's something different than what it is today.
Because you imagine that, like, ownership, like I own this glass, it is mine. So that would have been different then during the Viking Age.
Yeah, especially when it comes to land and farm owning. And I mean, that was a basis for the society, the land in itself.
Yeah, like, okay, maybe not items then, but...
Yeah, items is a bit different. Yeah, it could be more be in your possession in the way that we mean, I think. But on the large scale of things, it was a different approach to how to think about who owns what. To own something meant more that you were the caretaker of it.
So you talked about great men and kings also, that they did exist.
Yes.
So, but like, what realms and kings and kingdoms existed back then? Because obviously Sweden was not a country yet, even.
No, and that is a discussion, of course, and probably the kingdoms they were based on that the collectives did approve of somebody to be king. That most people agreed that it was a good idea to have this person as a king, and that was the basis for this person's power. And if the majority said that no, this person is no good, then they kicked him away.
Okay.
So and you can see that in the sources, and you can see that in the laws. There are Norwegian laws that says that if the king is bad, we can kill him. Yeah. And there are Swedish sources from early medieval period that says if the king is bad, we can fire him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, well, kind of jumping ahead into kings then a little bit more, but like if I lived during the Viking Age and wanted to become a king, what would I have to do? to make that happen?
Yeah, I think there are some things that you need to do. You need to be sort of from a collective, a family that has a good reputation from the beginning. So I don't think in normal cases anybody could be a king. You need to have some sort of background that people agrees that that is an okay family.
Okay. So not like Ragnar Lothbrok in the Vikings TV series, where he actually becomes king but is a farmer from the beginning, basically.
Yeah, I think it's possible. I think it was possible. I think it was nothing in the society that prevented that from happening. But the thing that happens, for instance, in Sweden with Uppsala and stuff like that, then you have one more moment into this, and that is that the royal line was also divine. So you needed to be related to this royal line, and that is a feature that really makes this system a little bit more stable.
Is that the Ynglinga line?
Exactly.
Yeah,
because they had the Freyr in the so you needed to be connected to Freyr, because Freyr was the person who had Uppsala from the beginning. So you needed to be from that line to claim the throne in Uppsala. So that the introduction of that divine thing makes the kingship a little bit more fixed. And the other feature that comes early on is also this notion of Uppsala öd.
Okay.
And Uppsala is, everybody knows Uppsala is a place, but connected to the Uppsala kingdom, there were also these farms distributed over the kingdom that was in the possession of the king of Uppsala. So it was in his odal, in his possession. So if somebody else was king in a petty king somewhere, it could happen. But then the farm was still there, and it was by law owned by the Uppsala king. So that also made the system more stable. So that was two features that supported the king of Uppsala as an overlord, so to speak, for the domain.
I see. So, like, how much power did the king have then? I mean, you talked already about there not being a police or a standing army, but what could a king decide over his disciples?
Yeah, and here you have, it's a continuity up to the medieval period also, because the king needed to serve a purpose for the collective, because if he didn't do that, then he had no use, so to speak. And one of his most prominent things to do was to function as the over-judge. If you had the arguments somewhere, then you had things, courts, that tried to decide those matters. And often you had several things where a matter of justice could be weighted from one instance to the next if they couldn't agree. But somewhere the line ended and this thing couldn't be decided. Then the king came. He was traveling around and he could decide this thing. So he was the supreme judge. And that was a really, really important function for him.
Yeah, because the system of law was actually quite prominent in the Viking Age society, am I right?
Yeah, this has also been a discussion then, because earlier in the 1980s, there came a research branch that said that the medieval laws that we know about, and that has always been said to be of a Iron Age origin, late Iron Age origin, they were really not. They weren't? No. Especially one person, she said in her dissertation that this is Central European Christian laws that has just been translated over to the Nordic countries. But after that dissertation came, and it had a really broad impact, but then people has looked at this again, and there is overwhelming evidence for that there really was laws, and that these medieval laws really goes back to an Iron Age origin. And just to mention one thing, there is this ring that has been was found on a church up in Hälsingland in Sweden, the foresighting.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And the people who said that claim that the law, because on this ring there is a runic inscription, a long one, that says something about punishment, and you need to pay fines because you have committed some sort of crime, and it's fine that is increasing. And it's a bit hard to understand what is written on this ring. And the people who advocated that it was 13th century laws, they said, but this is for the bishop. It's a 13th century bishop fine. But then it was overwhelmingly shown that this is really not. The runic inscription is probably from around 900. And this is heathen times, and this is a law. So it's a law on this thing. And that was very important to show that this whole idea that the laws were in its totality some sort of European thing was wrong.
Yeah. So a king was not like what we think of as a king today. I would to summarize it, I guess.
No, but it was not the only function. The kings had more functions, but they also served the collective. So one other thing that the king could do, of course, with this divine ancestry, also for the Uppsala king, but probably also other kings, they could be cult leaders. So they were also religious leaders in some instances. And that also served the collective, because these gatherings with the cult that collected the whole kingdom, so to speak. Of course, they needed a leader, and then the king was. So he served the purpose there. And the other thing was, in times of war, he could be the war chief, of course.
Yeah. But you said that, like, if, as you said, you serve a purpose. You said that if they didn't serve a purpose for the collective, they could be deposed or overthrown.
Yeah.
Was that a common thing?
We don't really know, but there are instances. For instance, there is this story about Olof Stjärnkonung, a Swedish king in the late Viking period, and he wanted to start a war that the peasants didn't want. So on the thing, they said, if you start this war, we will depose of you, as we have done with many of your of the previous kings here. So you listen to us and you do as we say, otherwise we will be finished. So you have that one, and you also have different other stories about how kings could be subjugated by the collective if they try to rise above their position, so to speak.
Yeah. So the transition then into medieval times and a more like society that we kind of are more familiar with. You researched the Husaby strongholds, or Husaby gårdar.
Yeah, I've looked a little bit into that. Yes.
Yeah. What were they?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yes.
And what role did they have?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not just me. It's because this is a very small part of my research. There are people who have written more about this, but in my opinion, they were places where the collective, from the beginning, they were places where the collective gathered resources. So they were really husa. It's a place where you have a lot of storage facilities. So husa is house in plural, but its house is a storage place. So husabyr is a farm where you have a lot of storage houses. And from the beginning, they probably were linked to this society where you could. Now it gets a bit complicated, maybe, but there is in Sweden and also in other parts of Scandinavia, there was this system of ledung that is known from early medieval period, but probably goes down into the Iron Age.
It's a kind of payment for.
It's ships. It's ships. It's a system where the collective gathers ships.
Yes.
And in Sweden, the primary source for this system is the Uppland law, written in 1296.
Yeah. I wonder why I thought it was money. It is ships.
Yeah, it's ships. But then you because it obliges a certain collective to put up ships.
Yeah.
And if they don't, if they do not succeed with this, they are obliged to pay a fine to the other collectives.
So maybe that's where
and to have this system that also served the collective, because it could be used for defense, but it could also be used, of course, to go somewhere else and take somebody else's resources. And the leader of this system was the king. And to equip a ship and send it away, you need a lot of resources. You need food, and you need other kinds of equipment, maybe tools, stuff like that. And of course, you need also later on you need a ship with all its attributes and stuff like that. And the Husaby was probably a place where you could store the things you needed in this system, because they are, if you look how they are placed in the landscape, they're regularly distributed in different places. So that is their origin. So they are also collective places where the collective gathered resources. And these resources could be used for the Ledung, but they could also probably be used for the itinerary kingdom, when the king rolled around, because you have Husabyar also in places where there were no Ledung, like in Västergötland.
So but what role did they play then in the unification and centralization of power in the later Viking Age?
Yeah, because over time, these places were linked both to the collective and to the king, so to speak. And from the beginning, there was no real difference between these, because the king was just the servant of the collective, so to speak. But as time moves on and you come up into the early medieval period in Sweden, the 13th century is a clear dividing point, where the king, or the central power linked to the king, gets a stronger power position and can start to impose its will on the collective. And then the Husabyar is transitioned to something else. They are transitioned to places where the king just gathers resources for himself. And that is also stated in the laws. If you read them carefully, you can see that. And this is linked to, there was a great civil war in Sweden during the 13th century. And the war was really much about this people who tried to defend the older societal order against those who wanted the new Christian kingdom, more based on how it looked down in Europe. And those who defended the older ultimately lost. And then the king could, or the central power could impose this new structure.
So going back then a little bit earlier because you've also been working on the Salome exhibition.
Yes.
And the tagline is Vikings before Vikings. Yeah. So these finds predates the Viking Age by about 40 years.
Something like that, yes.
I think the ships, though, have been... Well, we talked about the ships earlier, so maybe not focus so much on that, but they seem to be older. But what does this find tell us about the pre-Viking Age society?
Yeah, because, I mean, this concept of ages here and there, and we talk about the Viking period and stuff like that, I mean, it's our conception. It's something that we create.
Obviously.
There were no great breaks. Now the Vandal period ends, and now but we can see that the features that we normally attribute to the Viking Age, they were there a little bit earlier than what we thought. And for me, one of the main things about what is the Viking period is when you have sailing ships that can transport people and goods across the water. And you probably have that here.
Yeah.
So that is the first time that you can see that in reality in the Nordic countries. So, and it's for a war campaign over the sea. So
yeah, and I mean, for those of you who've seen the previous episodes, we talk a lot about this. But just to recap, they found two ship graves with 40 plus individuals buried in them.
Yeah,
and one of them actually has a king piece. From a Nefertafel game, much like this.
Yeah, the one in the center.
The one in the center, yes. He has it in his mouth. So Was there like a Viking king that controlled parts of the Baltic? Because the Salme is in Estonia. That's across the Baltic Sea from where these people were from.
Yeah.
So was there a Viking king who controlled like parts of the Baltic and the regions connected to it as well?
Probably there was, but because this is also linked to this collective society, because the people then, there was some sort of central kingship starting to grow in Uppsala. These things I talked about earlier with the Uppsala Öd and the divine king and stuff like that. So it started to centralize a little more centralized power structure that could muster a little bit more men and more ships and stuff like that. And then they could go over the sea to collect stuff that they needed from outside their own society. And this is mentioned in the sagas, but of course the sagas are late. But here you have one witness that this really did happen, that people were over and fought. And in earlier archaeological research, there have been people that has studied this also. And you know this place Grobin in Kurland in Latvia, modern day Latvia. There you have this place that is like a colony, a small city with the burial grounds outside it that also seems to be Scandinavian, Middle Sweden, Gotlandic people that has been there. So there, yeah, probably they were out over there to make taxation, so to speak. They were, I mean, it's like a mafia, really. You go over and you say, you pay us these things and we will leave you alone. So
yeah, because that's what we sometimes refer to as they demanded tribute, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Tribute lands.
And the Viking Age word for this was geld.
Yeah.
And like, when was this practice established of using geld? Do we know that?
Very early.
Because most people think of like the Danes coming up with that in Great Britain with the Dana geld. And you realize when you read that it's a really, really old tradition.
Yes, I think what's happening is that it's growing. It's growing in substance, so to speak. Because earlier on, when you didn't have, when you had smaller, maybe just rowing boats and stuff, then you didn't went so far. Maybe you went to your neighbor, did the same thing. You raided each other. So this is just the same thing, but it's on a larger scale, and it grows. And during the Viking period, it just grows and grows and grows, and then you have these really, really big fleets at the end of the Viking period, like a crescendo of this way of societal organization.
That's when you have the great great heathen army going into Britain.
Yeah, or even later on when you have Knut the Great going over with his enormous fleet towards England.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's really, that's crazy to think about. But would you say that this Salme, is that kind of where the Eastern expansion for the Scandinavian people began, or would you say that it had always been going on in one way or another, or not always, but like?
That's really, really hard to say, but we know from if you look at the sagas and if you look at also the archaeological material, probably it started a little bit earlier, at least maybe down in the 7th century, I would guess. So it's not the beginning of it.
Yeah.
But it's the most obvious archaeological site where we can see this violent expeditions going over.
Yeah.
It's so obvious.
It's really fascinating with the Eastern travels, and you told us earlier that one of your like first excavations as like an archaeologist was going into Russia.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that excavation?
Yeah, a little bit, but I mean, it was really early on in my in my career. So I was still a student then, but it was in the 90s. It was during the first Chechenian war in Russia, so it was a very tense situation in Russia then. Mm-hmm. But we were excavating outside of Novgorod in a place called Ryurikovo-Gorodische. so Rurik's city. And this is often identified with the place of Holmgård in the sagas.
Okay. So did you make any spectacular finds? Because I always felt it was like really interesting with the great river voyages into the east. And
it's a very special place. It's in the intersection with this large river, Volkhov, that flows into the Ilmen Lake further downstream. And then you have a canal that is dug right through this Viking period town, the Silversov channel. And also during the Second World War, the front line was in this place from 41 to 44.
Oh, wow.
So I mean, our toilet there in the field, it was, they said, don't fall into to that hole, because this is from a stuka, so it's a bomb on the bottom. So I don't know if it's true, but so they said, beware if you're going to the toilet. And there
that was fun.
and there was a lot of ammunition and stuff when we excavated, and also shell fragments and stuff like that. So the topsoil was a bit destroyed when we excavated, and this was also the place where the Novgorod count later on during medieval period had his residence. So the first thing we found was left spoils from his residence. But then further down, we found remnants of Viking period houses. They look exactly like they do in Birka or something like that. And in the absolute bottom layer, then you had the field, the farm field, where you could see that they had been plowing with an ardor. I don't know how to say it in English, but this plow that is just like a stick.
Yeah.
So you could see it was zigzagged down. Yeah. But the main find during the short period I was there was that we found how do you say it in English? The moat, because there was
the moat.
Moat, yeah, because there was a Viking fortress. They knew about that. It should have been a fortress there, but we found the moat. So we found this very large ditch. So that was the biggest find that we did.
That's got to be something, though. How far down did you have to dig? I mean, that's centuries of.
Yeah, because but this was in the. I said that they had dug this Silversov channel in the 19th century. I think they called in a lot of Chinese, so they stood there and hand digged this channel through the site. So that had made it sort of a erosion. How do you say it?
The sides of the channel eroded.
Yeah.
So you could kind of see it in the cross section.
Yes, so you had sort of a cross section. So you had sort of a sheet start. So, so it was a little bit less maybe to excavate.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But that's really fascinating. So, but this place is that where like Rurik built his town and where the country Russia originated then?
Yeah, that is probably it is similar to it is to identify with the Holmgård of the sagas, and during the late Tsar Empire, this was also something that people romanticized about. So the name Rurikovo Gorishi comes from that period. But I guess in nowadays Russia, I think maybe they have renamed it or something, or gone to some, I don't know,
something different.
Something different, maybe.
I mean, it's still very fascinating. It must have been like harrowing to dig around. And did you come across any duds, like unexploded ammunition and stuff like that?
Yeah. It was. I mean, this was in the 90s, and it was in Russia shortly after that the USSR had collapsed. So people didn't have much. So it was very simple, but it was. I really liked the people there. It was really fun. But during the nights we sat at the campfire, and then some Russian had this ammunition found during the day and put it on the fire. So
of course they did. Absolutely insane. Oh well. Well, I remember now what I was going to ask. Going back to the Salme bodies and the body with the king peas in his mouth. So What are your thoughts about that being Ingvar Harra, the legendary king who took tribute and died in those regions?
I have some things to say about that. Maybe for the first thing is this is archaeology, because you can never say for certain who that person was, and maybe that's not really in the grand scheme of things. That's not really important. So that is one thing. And the other thing is that normally this person also had a sword with him that had this ring on it, a ring sword. And normally this is interpreted as you have been swearing an oath to somebody else. The ring it's like when, I don't know, are you married?
Oh, yeah, I am.
Yeah. You have the ring.
Yeah,
what does that symbolize?
Yeah, it symbolizes that I'm married.
Yeah, and it symbolizes that you have promised your wife to be faithful to her.
Yes.
But there's no law that says that you can't be with another. It's just your promise.
Yeah.
So you have I swear, I will be faithful to you. And it's the same with the ring on the sword. So the person who has such a ring has sworn to somebody else to be faithful. So normally you interpret that as somebody who is dependent to a king. So this is not the king. This is somebody just below the king. So probably it's a leader, but it's not the king. So that is that's based on other people who has studied this really thoroughly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So probably leader, but I don't think it's the king. But the thing it shows is interesting anyway, because it shows a hierarchy, and that this was probably very organized.
Yeah.
So,
because you had these, like you said, the king is on top, and then you have like the great men, the stormen, beneath him. Then,
and they are also exactly like the king. Many of the great men, or maybe all of them, if they wanted to have stability, they needed also approval of the collective. So, and we know about, there are great men that are talked about in the sagas. So for instance, and we also know that those kind of great men existed in Sweden. So, but it's not talked about in the sagas, but you can see it in our place names. So in eastern Sweden, there is, for instance, on Lidingö, just right an island just beside Stockholm, you have something called Härsby. And Härsby, it says that here lived a Härse, and a Härse was a chieftain, but that was below the king. So probably, but it's just a speculation. But maybe it's more likely that this person who had this sword was a Härse, somebody just beside the king.
Too bad. It would have been nice to find a king.
yeah.
But then again, who would claim it? But I still think it's a fascinating fact that they actually like expanded in the way they did. What in the Viking society, apart from the fact that you want to claim tribute and gather resources, do you think promoted such a thought of expansion? Because like if you see, for instance, if you look at some of the Vikings who traveled west, they wanted to settle in England and build their farmsteads and like live there. Presumably because it was good farmland and which was scarce, especially in Norway. But would that be like one of the reasons why Vikings from Sweden traveled east as well? Would you think?
Yeah, I think that might be an explanation, but it's also this old explanation. I think it still holds that there were, because of the organization in the homeland, there were scarcity of land. So if you were 3 or 4 brothers, maybe there were brothers who didn't have their land. So then to have their own farm, they needed to go somewhere else.
Yeah,
I guess. So
that leads us into land owning.
Yeah,
which we touched upon briefly before.
Yes.
Because you researched a lot, and I think is that your thesis that is on the Udal, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So can you first tell us what Udal is? Like, explain it to us.
Oh, yeah, it's a concept of owning. It's and it's a basic feature in the late Iron Age society, in Viking period society. So it's absolutely fundamental, and everybody knew this. And I mean, society was structured around it.
But it's specifically claiming a piece of land.
Yes, but it's the way how you owned it, because you didn't own it personally by yourself. It was the family owned something. So if you were the Odal's mother, the person controlling this land, then you were just the caretaker of it for future generations. So you couldn't dispose of it or make of it as you wanted. You needed, if you wanted to do something with the land, sell it or something like, you needed approval from the whole family. And it was really, really hard. And if you got somebody else's Odal land, it wasn't yours legally until you had it for 5 or 6 generations. So you needed to be able to show that this has been mine for 5 generations before you can say that this is my Odal.
Yeah, that's interesting, because that goes into something else we talked about. I think it was when we had our pod with Ben Raffield here as a guest, and we talked about the concept of slavery. And we know for like there is a runestone south of Stockholm, actually in the area of where I come from, where basically what it says is that there are 2 slaves who were set free and they were given land. But technically, the land wasn't theirs.
Yeah, but of course then it becomes more complicated, because then you had land that nobody had claimed, or land that belonged to a larger collective. And that land was, the family is also a collective. So in practice, that land was also sort of under the Odal of the larger collective, so to speak. But if the collective together agreed that this person can have this piece of land, then they could instantly transfer it to this person, so he or she could get it.
But how would because today in Norway, the Udal right,
yes,
it's in the Norwegian constitution.
Yes, it is.
So how does that work today? Because obviously that's gonna, like, we have a slightly different inheritance law in Sweden, but like how did they inherit stuff? Because obviously a family could have more than one sibling.
And then I just want to say one thing, but when I still have it on my mind, because you need to understand that it's not just a right; it's also an obligation. And I think that if you talk to a Norwegian who is maybe making a career or something in Oslo, and then his father dies, and he inherits this farm, and he is the odelgutt, then he has also sort of an obligation to take over the farm. So it's just not just a right; it's a responsibility, and it was like that already in the Viking period. So it's both a right and an obligation, and very much in the Viking society was in that way. It was both a right and an obligation linked to the collective.
Because I think also, I'm going back a lot to Ben Raffield now, because I talked to him a lot about this, but I think also that burial mounds in some way were connected to the Udal.
Yes.
Like, can you elaborate on that?
Yes, because this was a society where you didn't have any written sources. I mean, you had the runes, and in some instances, but the runestones, they are quite late in the Viking period. And in some instances, it's obvious, because like the Malsta stone from Hälsingland, and there is also some other runestone from them in Småland, where you can see that they are counting generations. You can see it's 5 generations. So it's obvious that they have done this to claim the Odal right, to show that we own this. And there are other runestones that also explicitly talks about that this is their Odal. But otherwise, this was a society that was not literate. So you needed to show things in other ways. So the visible graves become a legal monument also. And you could say that there lays my great grandfather, there lies my grandfather, there lies my father, and in that way you could show that you had the right to the land. So it becomes sort of a legal document.
And an important statement also for people traveling.
Yes.
Through your land.
Yeah, because they see this and they know that this is somebody else's odal, because you have this graves that shows this.
But it seems to be to have been a very complex and advanced system of owning and
yeah, of course it was very advanced. I mean, people were no less advanced just because they didn't have literacy as we do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a very advanced society, I think.
So what do we know about what problems came through the odal right? Because obviously
the major problem there, of course, is when the church makes its entrance into society. Because the church had this concept of ownership it had inherited from the Romans. And the Roman concept of ownership is very similar to the one that we have today. So they pushed for this way of owning things because the church needed land. Because when you have all these parish churches that are put up everywhere around in the country, every parish church needs to have its priest, and every parish church needs to have some sort of thing that sustains it. That means land. And if all the land is under somebody else's odal, it gets very complicated for the church to get land. And this conflict is very, very visible in the early medieval documents.
So how did this play out then? Because, I mean, today, the Swedish church, although not very powerful today, is one of the largest landowners in Sweden.
Yes, there is a connection there, of course. But this is, in the early period, the church didn't get to if it was odal land that they couldn't claim, then the person who was the odal mother for a family, he could say that, yeah, you could have our land, but I can only say for as long as I live, because when I die, my son, he becomes the odal mother, and he might say that, go away, because I want my land back, because it was still in the ownership of the family. So and this created an uncertainty for the church, who wanted the land permanently. So this gave rise to large conflicts, and this also plays into this civil war in the 13th century that I mentioned before.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, so this was a very, very large thing.
Yeah,
and it's not just in Sweden; it's in all of Scandinavia. This plays out in different ways.
I mean, it's like this also plays into like tax and stuff, and tax and coins stick together like glue, in a way. Yeah. But you researched the minting process during the Viking Age. Am I correct?
A little.
A little bit, yeah. So where were coins minted then? I mean, like, how did they come into play, and what relations did that have to the notion of like owning and selling and buying land? Yeah, I don't know. From the beginning, you could really say that. I mean, it was not the main thing was that it was not allowed to sell land at all. So I mean, it was just in exceptional cases from the beginning, probably. Okay.
But later on, during the medieval period, it becomes more and more common, and the odal rights are relaxed. So and you can see this process very, very clearly in how the laws are written. And then, of course, coins are used to buy land, if it's that what you meant.
Well, I kind of went into my own thoughts there, but I had an idea where I was going this, because I was thinking like who during the Viking Age like could actually make money.
If you mean so, because I think the early minting in Scandinavia. Because later on, during the medieval period, the coinage, it works inside the country, and you're the king, and you make coins and you put them out, and you tell everybody that this is worth 1, you say, and then later on you say this is worth 0.5, and everybody has to accept this because you have the authority to do that. And a simpler way of doing that is to put in lesser metal. From the beginning, the coins are of very, very good silver, and then you mix it with copper, and then it gets more and more copper, and you get more and more profit and stuff like that. But this is also impossible to do in a society, in an late Iron Age society, because that would be to cheat your collective. It would be to cheat your own people, and they wouldn't accept it. So
sorry, I didn't mean to.
The early coinage, I think in Sweden, it's linked to, like in Sigtuna, the oldest coinage. And Sigtuna is a place where export and import take place. So there you have to deal with foreigners, people from outside your own society, because trade is also a way of gaining surplus from outside your own society. So you have plunder, but you also have trade. And both requires these new ships with sails. So there is the Viking Age ships are important for both. And then the coins from the beginning, I don't think it's not functioning as we think today. It's controlled silver. It's because what the foreigner gets when he gets to Sigtuna is security. And I think all the Viking larger trading places worked like that. They guaranteed security, but you had to pay a fee for it as a foreigner. And then you got a safe haven to trade. And you got the king's guardianship.
Yeah, because there were no really monetary system back then, obviously. Or was there?
No, I don't think so. I mean, this is of course up for discussion, but I don't think so. I think it would have been contrary to how society worked. So a monetary system where you sort of profited on your own population, it's impossible. It's something. So this system just worked in relation to those places where import and export took place, and it was also so the profit was made out of the foreign merchants.
Okay.
Just to simplify.
So it wasn't like something that every day Scandinavians would have a purse with a few silver coins and.
No, I think all transactions with silver, of course, there were transactions, but I think the main system there was just a weight where you weighed how much silver it was.
Yeah.
So that was the basis. So I don't think, personally, in functioning coinage systems during the Viking period. Not in the sense that we mean.
Okay. Because also it's fascinating though, because obviously the Vikings traveling east, especially they trade a lot with the Middle Eastern countries. So we found in Scandinavia, obviously, Arabian silver coins.
Yeah.
Plenty of them. And I may have misunderstood this, but maybe you can correct me. But I think there was a study made, actually by my sister and a colleague, because she studied archaeology for a time at the Stockholm University, but she lived in Canada, so it was like online. But she partook in a study where they took on the idea to weigh the silver bracelets that they found, the very ornamented silver bracelets. One idea was that they would cut pieces of it to weigh, but then they said, why would you cut pieces of it and like decorate it so much and then cut it to pieces? That doesn't make sense. So they started weighing them, and it seems that they had the exact same amount of silver as an Arabian silver coin. I'm not sure if you are familiar with this at all.
No, but I'm familiar with the concept of weight, because it was very important. So you had fixed values connected to the weight of stuff. I mean, when you find a Viking weighing equipment with the weight, you often also find the weights, and they are very precise. So of course they had a system for weighing. So it's no surprise, really.
Yeah, because I thought it was fascinating that it was so basically they're walking around, oh, this is this much money, basically.
Yeah.
It's kind of an interesting idea. So that, though, to me at least says that although the society back in Scandinavia didn't maybe have a monetary system, people who traveled definitely like had a notion of a monetary system.
Yes. Yeah. I just think that to have a monetary system in the sense that I talked about earlier, when you make a profit from your own population, I think that would not have been possible. A king couldn't make a profit from his own population without when the people didn't get anything back.
Yeah, so
it would have made an uproar. It wouldn't have worked.
Yeah,
it's impossible.
So when did this come into practice in Scandinavia then?
It's the same. It also comes creeping, so to speak. Yeah. But also the during the 13th century, you get the first city in Sweden who get there is a prohibition on what they call landsköp, when you are making deals in the countryside from farmer to farmer. They prohibit it, and then they force people. Probably it did not work, but they tried to force people with the law into the city to make their dealings in the city, so they can control it and they could take a tax on the. It comes during the 13th century also, and that is also when you start to see that the coins are not from perfect silver anymore. Start to get copper and stuff in it. Yeah, so that it's the same process. It's just another branch of it.
We have a lot of copper coins in Sweden.
yeah, especially later on.
Yeah. Especially that big one. That's massive. Yeah. So, how common was silver, like silver coins in the society then? Like, you say like the main like trading cities or trading posts or societies, but would there be coins anywhere else in society?
Yeah, I think people. I mean, it was attributed worth to silver, so people needed silver for status, and you could buy and sell cows, and even though you couldn't buy and sell land, maybe, and it gives status, and so I think it was quite common. But maybe you didn't always have to use your silver, so that might explain, for instance, the large amount of treasures you found on Gotland or something, because you had the silver but you didn't need to use it, so then it got stuck in the ground. Because there was no very fast market movements where you every day went shopping, so probably you had it but you kept it, so it was not an everyday thing to use.
Because they found some massive silver treasures on Gotland. I think there was one where like a couple of kids found some in a rabbit hole, just a bunch of silver coins. It's a legendary one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
So like do you know that story at all?
Yeah, I remember it because I think I was small when this happened.
Yeah.
But I don't remember. There are so many silver hoards from Gotland. So many.
So much stuff in the ground there.
Yeah, and then if you read the Gotlandic law, you see that it was absolutely prohibited to sell land on Gotland also. So,
but I heard so many crazy stories, like a farmer who died and his kids went through his house and they found a gold necklace from the Viking Age in his nightstone. They found it on his grounds and he just threw it in there because he didn't want the archaeologists to come there and dig up his fields. Yeah. Anyways, that's sidetracking a little bit. So moving on, there are some pretty awesome news, I think, because you will partake in some new excavations on Birka.
Yeah, if everything goes as planned. It's Sven Kalvring and me. So we have, there is a place on Northern Birka that we have been researching for almost 10 years now. So finally we hope to we have done geophysical service and also phosphate service of this place. So finally we get to maybe, if the permits are granted,
all right,
so to make a small excavation.
So what's the object here? What are you trying to? What are you excavating?
Yeah, it's a large a large farm, a large storgård. How do you say it in English?
Oh, yeah, a longhouse.
Yeah, it's a longhouse, but it's more than that. It's a
you have
mansion. A mansion.
A mansion.
Yeah, it's a large mansion from the late Viking, late Iron Age that we are going to investigate further. And it is a large longhouse inside. That is.
Oh, so it's not
part
just
of
a longhouse.
No, it's more.
It's a whole compound. Okay.
Yes, it's a compound.
Oh, wow.
So so we will try to make a small excavation to date this more thoroughly, and also to see maybe if there are several phases in it. So it's just a preliminary, small initial study. So we hope to get a little further.
So what are you hoping to find? Do you have any idea what could be there?
Yes, we know that we have a large longhouse, and but we don't know the exact date. The dating of this longhouse is just based on analogies with other longhouses, and it is also based on the land upheaval, how this is related to the water level. And then we can say that it's around the year 800 or something like that, maybe a little later. But this is a type of mansion that has not been recorded in Sweden before. It is in south of Sweden, in Skåne, Scania. There is such a mansion also in Järrestad. But otherwise, there is like 4 or 5 such mansions in Denmark. Because this longhouse, to it has connected an enclosed area that is going down to the water here on our place. And those areas that are with these fences, they are cultic enclosures, because several of those have been excavated in other places. For instance, in Järrestad, when they found a small building where they could see that there had been cultic activities going on. So we're pretty sure that that is what we have here. So, and the longhouse, it's 40 meters, or maybe even a little more than that long.
That's massive.
So it's really, really large.
Yeah.
So we think this is connected to the chief of Birka. So we think it's his farm, because it's also situated just over from, because on Adelse, the island right over the water from Birka, there you know that there is this royal farm that probably was Uppsala had before that. And you have there also a hall that is adjacent to this hall. So they are looking at each other, have been looking at each other on the water.
Okay.
And so we think this is a really, really important place, because, you know, from Rimbert, the story that is written by Ansgar's disciple.
Yes.
Probably Rimbert had also been on Birka. Ansgar were on Birka on 2 occasions, so Rimbert was probably there at least on the second occasion. So and he talks about that it was Hergeir who was the chief of Birka. And he was very close to the king, and he was the first also to accept Christianity when Ansgar came, and he built the church on his mansion.
Yeah.
And that is the first church in all of Scandinavia. So this is also a hotspot for that. But that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that this is a place, we hope, that can shed light on how the Birka was governed, and also maybe tell us something about how it started, if we get to investigate this place a little more thoroughly.
But you are also excavating the Ansgar church.
No, also we don't know if there is a church. We don't know anything yet, but we know that there is an enclosure, and we know that this enclosure is connected to the hall in the same way as it is for the Danish examples. And the most prominent of the Danish examples is the Great Hall at Leire, who had also such an enclosure. But the most famous, the most thoroughly researched such place in Denmark is in Tissa, also in Shetland. Sealand, you say in English. Yeah, also in Sealand. And there you could also see that there had been some sort of cultic activities inside this enclosure. And there is speculation. There's an interpretation that it was first there was a heathen cult inside of this enclosure. And then later on, during the late Viking period, this is exchanged. And then you have a Christian cult going on inside this enclosure.
Because that is a common practice, not only in Sweden, I think, but like when Christianity moves in, they build their churches on top of old heathen or pagan cult places.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Me personally...
Or at least in relation to them, I think.
Yeah, sometimes it's obviously that way. But I think a deciding factor also might have been just this issue of land ownership, because you needed to have a place that was favorable to get land for the priest and for the church. So that I think sometimes also has been deciding for where to put the church.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
Because I know, for instance, like where I live, outside, or not far from where I live, there is a place called the Ghost Hills, and they have Bronze Age burials and Iron Age burials on a big ridge.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful place, and you can see the stone links and all that kind of stuff. They have a domaring judgment,
yes,
stuff like that.
Yeah.
And when you're standing on top of this ridge, like in the direction the ridge it goes east to west. So if you look east from this ridge, directly east, there's a church.
Yeah,
like you can see it from the top, and it's fascinating that like they would build a church in sight of this place where they buried people for thousands of years.
Yeah, probably no. There is, of course, some sort of connection there, because I think, it's also. I mean, the church is also a collective place, isn't it? Just like the burial ground. So it makes sense for the collective to build the church in the right spot for the collective, so to speak. So yeah, probably you have a connection there.
Yeah. I just think that's kind of like fascinating how the new religion kind of like wants to, take help from the old stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. But you're also, are you also researching Korshamn, or I heard you mention something about Korshamn as well?
Yeah, but Korshamn is this place.
Oh, it is that place.
It's
okay, sorry.
North Björk, yes.
I thought it was kind of sorry.
Yeah, and
Hamn to me is harbor.
yeah, but it is a harbor. It's a harbor place.
Oh, okay. I thought it was further up.
No, I mean, of course, this is on land now, but
obviously the land elevation. You said.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a small bay there today, and it's a really, really good harbor place. Really.
I'm really tired.
Skål.
Skål. Yeah. So, but what do you expect to find except that? Then, do you have any idea what you are you looking for? Anything else that's kind of specific?
In this stage, we're primarily just looking for something that is substantial, that we can get this mansion better dated, so that because this will also be a stepping stone in getting a bigger grant, so we can make a more thorough investigation of this place, because we think this is really a key to understanding also how the Sweden, Middle Sweden, but also Scandinavia, how it got integrated, the first steps into the sort of European Christian society. Because I mean, if you look at it that way, all of the Viking period really is a transition into the medieval Christian kingdom. That is really the transition period. So, and this is sort of maybe, if it is as we think it is, in the start of the transition period. So we think it's a very good key to understand this, but also a good key, of course, to understand how this proto-urban place that is Birka worked in the start, and how it came to function.
So when did they learn about the location of the longhouse and the compound? Because obviously
that was us.
that was you.
Me and Sven. Yeah.
Yeah.
So because we were there because Sven and Lena Holmqvist, she had they had an excavation that I was partaking in also. So in the evenings, of course, you go strolls around the island. I mean, there's so much to see. It's a marvelous place. It's fantastic.
Yeah, everybody should go there.
Yeah, everybody should really go there. And then really, there was this edge that. So when I walked there, I looked, boop, I almost fell over it. And shit, this is really big house. And then nobody has thought about this. And then
that's insane.
Me and Sven, we talked about it, and this is Korshamn. This is a really large house. What is this? So, and then and this is connected also though to this enclosure that is there. And this enclosure is really visible because it's stone rows and it has been known forever. It's talked about already in the early 19th century as the person who wrote about it. Then he speculated that this must have been the place where Ansgar first talked about Christianity and stuff like that. So we made together with Andreas Wiberg, we made a geophysical survey of this area, and then we saw the longhouse, but we couldn't understand but the enclosure how it did fit into the picture. But then I remember we sat speculating at home, me and Sven. We talked to each other, and what can it be? What can it be? And, and then suddenly Sven got silent, and then he said, I got it. Because then he had looked in Lars Jørgensen, the Danish researcher who has done the research on Tissa, this thing on place on Zealand that we talked about earlier that has this farm. And he looked at that one, a special face there, and it looks exactly the same. It's almost like a blueprint. It's very similar with this longhouse and this enclosure to it. So that's how we realized that it was really, really special. So this was like 9 years ago, something. So we have been doing. I mean, this is in our spare time, in our free time. So we do small steps all the time. Yeah. Try to get.
Wow, it's insane because they've been excavating on Birka since like the 1600s.
Yeah, but it's a place, it never starts. You can find new stuff there.
Yeah.
It's so, for me, it's a very, very special place.
Yeah. It's actually funny because we were talking about E-Type earlier. And the first time I met him in person, it was actually on Birka.
Yeah.
And we were there talking to Veronica.
Yeah.
Who is... she's the head of the
Strömma,
and the company that takes care of Birka, and then he comes. We're sitting talking to her outside the cafe there, and he swoops in and he's like, "Today's fine," and he takes something up that's just spilled out somewhere. So you can literally find a lot of things, and I think also. Our company went there not too long ago, and somebody found like a knife or something. It's like you can just stumble over things.
Yeah, that's not really good. But but I guess it's maybe because there have been a problem with badgers. Excavating in the mounds there. But I hope they get to solve that problem. Yeah, because it's really, really bad that stuff gets out. So
definitely is.
So so. But I hope they have finished them off.
Otherwise, they can help you dig, maybe.
Yeah, but it's not in a good way. It's not supposed to be like that.
Yeah, I hear you. But it's still very fascinating that you can make such discoveries still after like over 400 years of excavating a place that is over 1,000 years old.
Yeah, but I think a key is always to be open-minded. A cliche, but it's really true. Because if you don't look, you will not find anything. And this is a place where you can. I'm sure that there will be new discoveries also. because this place is littered with remnants.
Yeah.
You just need to know how to look for it, so to speak. So probably there will be more things to find there. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, I mean it's super fascinating. I hope this dig goes really well, and it would be really interesting to see what you find.
Mm.
Yeah. So I mean, we're nearing the end of this conversation, but we always try to end with a little bit of fun stuff. So
yeah.
Here's a couple of tricky questions for you.
Okay.
Yeah. Number one, if you could be the fly on the wall somewhere or anywhere during the Viking Age, what would you like to see or experience?
Probably that moment when Ansgar arrives to Birka, how he was received, because this clash between cultures, so to speak. How did they meet each other? How did it look?
Yeah, because he came back, right? He came once and was thrown out of there.
No, he wasn't thrown out.
Oh, he wasn't?
It was okay. So yeah, he established Hergeir, it became his good friend. So they were really close.
Totally misunderstand that.
Oh, yeah. No.
Maybe it's because he had this really, if I remember right, like really difficult journey.
Yes, he was robbed outside of Kalmar. So they had to walk the land. I mean, it was this society where he took stuff from others. So yeah.
So what do we know about that? Like him being robbed, like
just what the Rimbert writes.
Yeah.
That they, if I remember correctly, they lost all their books and stuff. So and they had to walk up to Birka.
So then he walked up to Birka and he met Hergeir and they became friends.
Yeah. And I mean, they had an invitation from the king. I mean, the king came down to the German emperor and said, we want somebody up to us to teach Christianity. And you don't really know if that invitation was because they were very curious about a new religion, or if it was just business, a good way to be a Christian, or at least have some sort of Christian connection to make more profit.
Yeah,
you don't know, but so they had an invitation to come.
Yeah, isn't that also the theory about the wolf cross, which is like a Thor's hammer, and then you turn around, it's a Christian cross?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, that's an interpretation I heard, that they could use it to turn around when they had to deal with Christians, because
but this dualism between religions, that is something that for sure existed. Pragmatism, that you could be, about this. You could be, I don't know how to say it in English, primsignad. You could say that, maybe I will get baptized someday.
Like pre-baptized, basically.
Pre-baptized, yes. So, and that was very convenient, because then you could say that you were sort of Christian when you were with Christians, and when you were with heathens, you could say that, no, I'm not baptized. So,
yeah, loophole.
Yeah,
that's what we call it.
Exactly.
But then Ansgar came up to Birka, but like, did he build the church like the first time around, or?
No, he didn't build it. Hergeir did.
I mean Hergeir. Did he build the church the first time he was there?
Yes, he became Christian really fast, and he built a church on his property. It says in the chronicle. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how come Ansgar came back? Because he came back.
Yeah, I don't really, but he wanted to see how because he started the congregation. He started this, so he wanted to see how it went, I guess. I don't remember exactly how it's written in Rimbert, but he came back, and I mean, he was still friends with Hergeir. So
yeah, I gotta read up on that. I know of the story. I just haven't read it. It's actually very fascinating. Anywho, I hope that you find everything fascinating, and that you can see, at least through archaeology, what the church would have looked like if you find it.
If it's there. We don't know. We really don't know.
Yeah.
It's just a speculation.
Yeah.
So you need to be careful what you say.
Yeah. All right. So second tough question, and this is the doozy.
Yeah. Okay.
Would you have wanted to live back in the Viking Age?
No, definitely not.
Why?
Because it was.
Or why not?
No, it's a so uncertain society, because I mean, the violence that prevailed, it was so violent, and And the violence came, of course, from this very, very weak state that didn't exist. So you had to sustain for yourself, and you had to build alliances, and you had to rely on your family, and you had to. And no, I think it was violent and quite awful, really. So no, not for me. I think it's much nicer now.
Plus, also you could die from a splinter.
Yes, exactly. Not so much medicine.
But yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you answered so quickly. I mean, most people answer no, actually. Only I think your friend Jim Hansson said yes.
Yeah, he did.
And Farah Vida Douglas. I think those are the only two who said yes to that question.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's a fascinating thought, though, and when I don't think that most people realize how different the society were, and that's why this conversation has been so interesting and enlightening, because you can really understand exactly what you're saying, how uncertain it was, how self-reliant you had to be, but also dependent on alliances. And because, like, if somebody robbed your house, you couldn't just call 911 or 112 in Europe, and the police would come. It was basically everybody for themselves, in a way. Yeah. So obviously that, plus also all the diseases, all the stuff that went around that you couldn't protect yourself from, and it must have been really tough.
Yes.
And going back to the Salme expedition as well.
Yes.
The chieftain that they found at grave, if I'm correct, he had 2 vertebrae in the neck that were grown together.
Yeah, he had some sort of deformation in his neck.
Imagine the pain.
Yeah, and you couldn't do anything.
You couldn't do anything about it. Yeah. So it's a really tough period of human history, I would say.
Yeah, but it's not. I mean, there were a lot of hardships before us. So
of course, but it's still. I still think it's fascinating with people who actually do say yes to that question. Yeah. Because they know this, and they still would think about it at least.
yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, but humans are complex.
Yeah. Then again, if you were born in the Viking Age, you wouldn't know anything different. So.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Well, Johan, it's been great having you here. Thank you so much for coming here and talking to us about your research and all that stuff, and all the Viking society and all of that. It's been a true pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Tack.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed this episode, check out our other episodes on our YouTube channel, Spotify, and other podcast streaming services. And also subscribe to support our work. Thanks for listening.